Welcome back to this episode of the CGA Tour podcast. As always here, I'm your host, Calvin Glen Alexander, and I'm joined in person, see if you're watching by the Jake Carlson. Jake, how's it going?
In my living room.
In your living room, in San Diego.
In San Diego. Not sunny San Diego.
Not sunny today. Something's picking out a little bit and heard us talk badly about it earlier, and it's like, you know what, now I've got to try something better.
But it's like pretty fundamentally disgusting outside.
Yeah, I've got like a best friend of mine from high school who his convention was this week for physical therapy school, and he's like, oh man, can you wait to come out to San Diego when you bring a coat? And I was like, actually, yeah, a rain jacket and basically dressed like it's Oklahoma winter. He's like, dude, what the heck, it's San Diego? It's like, yeah, dude, there's like the first ever flood watch in multiple years going on. Like, yeah, bring a coat.
And we just walked outside, and it was like pretty floody. Not floody, but like, you know, we live in Oklahoma. Like, we've pushed cars out of, like, that have gotten their alternators stuck in the water. Like, that's actually a true story for, we're not telling it, but that actually happened.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not that bad here, but, like, I didn't move here for this. It's like, it's been 48 and raining for the last, like, 3 days.
Yeah, I'm not sure at what point I was like, you know what? This just seems like a horrible idea. I don't like this weather whatsoever. And I think right now I'm like, yeah, I paid too much in rent for this weather. I might need to make a change.
Yeah. But, I mean, we're hoping it pays off. I think it's supposed to get a little warmer here soon. I know we always do our, like, casual weather update because I'm always living in some different place. So it, like, kind of depends where I'm living and what I'm doing. I guess same goes for you. But, like, we're on the West Coast now. And so we're kind of like, this is garbage. Like, this sucks.
Yeah, so much for sunny Southern California.
Yeah.
But I will say with that, we just finished watching the Oklahoma State versus Kansas State game.
Mm-hmm.
Lost by 5. Shot 23 or more
ish
3-pointers. Shot 23 or more free throws.
5 for 25 from the 3-point line.
And I will say on the other hand, K-State didn't do much better. They did do better. They were 38% from 3. We were 22% from 3. But, like, they made 8 threes. So it's not like they just went on they hit, triple digits or something crazy. Eight's a good amount, though. I mean, they definitely kept them in the game, and especially in key moments. But we've got Baylor coming on Monday night.
Yep.
In Stillwater. And then last game of the season at Texas Tech. Last game of the regular season, at least. We're making the Big 12 tournament this year. Thank goodness, because last year we couldn't. But do you think right now, what are your guesses on, like, if we can make March Madness? Do you think we have a good shot?
I think we should, and I'm trying not to, like, play into as much of the Lenardi stuff, because that, like, in comparison to, like, NFL drafts and rankings and, like, all of this different stuff that we have for every single other sport, like, we have all of this information for NBA draft, NFL draft, MLB draft, all of these different sources, AP poll, coaches poll, college football playoff, all of this different stuff. At the end of the day, Lenardi's opinion matters, but it really doesn't, because he's not selecting anything.
Well, it's not him having us. He had us in the last 4 out before the K-State game.
Yeah.
That does not mean that the March Madness, or last 4 in, excuse me. That does not mean that the March Madness group has us going, yep, that we agree with Lenardi on literally every single pick he has.
Right.
I mean, you're right. Like, everyone's picking their own.
And in college basketball, like, for some reason, and I know why, because there's so many teams, we just don't have that depth of information like we have for almost everything else that we want. Because it's like, if I typed in NFL Draft 2023, I'd find 8 sources on Google that could potentially all have a different thing. Whereas with the bracket, it's like, really the only person you have to go off is Lenardi, and sometimes maybe you have, like, a CBS Sports thrown in there, but, like, people don't always value it as much, and then you get told, like, oh, they value the net, but then you have KenPom, which everybody agrees is more valuable than the net. I'm not a math person. I don't know if you're a math person. All of those things take math, which is why smarter people figure that out. But we always rank better in KenPom than we do in the net. So I'm always like, this is really confusing, because the people at the top of KenPom, it's not like, it might be this year, but it's usually not like your Gonzaga your St. Mary's, like your smaller schools. It's always your bigger schools because everybody knows you're playing harder competition. Not to knock the other schools, but the net seems to take into account that, oh, maybe you're playing a smaller school, right?
Yeah, and this goes into why we like love and hate March Madness at the same point.
Right.
Because you can have an Iona team with a dude who looks like who was balding, or is balding, I guess. Maybe he's got his hair situation fixed out. It's 2023. But they can have that team beat Kofi Coburn and the Illinois team, and then Oklahoma State play later that day going, oh my gosh, we don't even have to face Illinois. And then we lose to Oregon State.
Yeah.
And like that's just part of it. You can't account, like, how are you going to account for this type of stuff in a ranking of, oh, I think Oklahoma State deserves to be in because I think they can make it through week 1, but we're going to put them as an 8th rank because they couldn't make it past. They could beat the 9 seed, but they couldn't beat the 1 seed.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're not doing that ranking. And the automatic bids, those are crazy too, because, okay, you've got Lenardi basically factoring that into, okay, so St. Mary's, right now, if they win, they're playing tonight against Gonzaga at Gonzaga.
Yeah.
If they win, they get the automatic bid.
Yep.
If they lose, then they tie, Gonzaga with the regular season bid or whatever, right?
And realistically, they're both probably in.
And realistically,
Yeah.
one's 15, one's 12 seed. Like, they're both in.
Yeah.
But every single year, it's not like this.
Right.
It's some years where it's like, well, maybe only one team out of this non-Power 5 conference that we know the school who plays in it is going to make it. So how do you account for example, right now we're watching North Carolina, Virginia. North Carolina, I think, is on the bubble. Maybe they're one of the teams that's in. But, okay, like, let's say North Carolina just absolutely just dominates, wins the crap out of this game. Cool. But you could have an Oregon State but you could have them in. Mm-hmm. Or you could also have, like, Oregon State last year, who made it as a 12 seed, who won the whole Pac-12.
Right.
It was like, wait, hang on a second. What? How does that even work out? And you've got to, I'm sure that bounced some team that was going to be the 8th Big 12 team. There's only 10 teams in the Big 12.
Yeah.
Or the 7th or whatever, because you just have these automatic bids that happen that you have to account for in March Madness. And Lenardi's the only one who really puts it all together in like a big spreadsheet, makes it all make sense. Because, to your point, net ratings, you can't take that into account. KenPom rankings, you can't take that into account either. Like, that's all that is just saying this is 1 through 300 of the best teams in college basketball based on their offensive, defensive, and several other ratings that are, like you said, a ton of math.
Yeah, it's like, I almost equate it to war in baseball, right? Because like war in baseball, like the MLB has not approved this statistic, so you can't use it to get into the Hall of Fame or anything of that nature. But like they say they loosely use net in terms of like getting people into the tournament. But if we entered today the 41st team in the net, right? Which I don't understand how we keep dropping and West Virginia keeps rising. It doesn't make any sense to me. When we're playing the same teams, West Virginia is not winning. Like, we still have a better record than they do. I don't know if it's the whole like, oh, well, you're not playing well right now. So, like, you're dropping in the net or whatever, and I don't know how much impact those 2 one-point games that we had against Southern Illinois and UCF count. But it's like, you've got West Virginia, who they say is automatically in the tournament, who we split with, who we have a better record than, both in conference and total. So that doesn't make any sense to me. But then you look, like you mentioned, we're watching North Carolina right now. Like, you look at North Carolina. Do people actually think they would put OSU in over North Carolina?
You've got some fans who would go, oh, well, Oklahoma State's played much better teams. They should be in. But I don't think anyone in the country is going, oh, they will put them in over North Carolina. Because right now, North Carolina is 17-11. Oklahoma State is 16-12. Or 16-13, I think, after today. So,
and what would we be in the ACC? I know you can't say, but like,
we would have a better record than North Carolina, one would think.
Right.
I mean, but this goes to a whole deal as well, too. Like, every single team deals with a bunch of injuries. We're not the only one.
Yeah.
But for me to say, oh, losing one of our players, Moussa Cisse, who started a ton of games for us this season, not every one, and has not started any since he's been injured.
At the time, we were like 9-1 or something when he had played.
yeah, when he had played, we were just doing incredibly well.
Yep.
Then we have, I forget if it was Woody Newton or Caleb Asbury who had like a death in the family.
Newton,
who missed some games earlier this year too, and now Avery Anderson. Have we won a game since he's been? We've won one game since he's been out.
It was the first game that we played, which was against. It was the game before Kansas.
The TCU at home, or Iowa State away. Iowa State away.
Iowa State away.
That's the game we won where Iowa State hadn't lost at home until that game.
Yeah, and then Iowa State loses to OU today. So it's, it's hard to say. I don't want to say that was fluky, but I think it's pretty obvious to me that we're a better team than Iowa State this year, considering we beat them twice. But Iowa State's been ranked all year. And our record has been, we've been one game back of them for a lot of the season. Like, they haven't been that much better than us. So, and they've been ranked. Like, they're ranked. They've been ranked almost all year. So it truly, I don't understand it. I don't necessarily think we're a great team, but are we a top 68 team in the country? Yes, because if you have to look at teams like Northwestern, for example, and go, yeah, they're ranked. And you're like, are they though? Like, or are they just playing the Big Ten?
There's also the teams that just to switch the whole ranking idea that you're bringing up. Like, Coastal Carolina will get ranked in football. And it's like, we should be able to beat the living crap out of them on a neutral site field.
Yeah, we would have beat the pants off of them last year, and we sucked.
But I mean, honestly, I don't feel super confident about that.
No.
But I think you're right. I think this purely off talent-wise. And so when you bring it back to basketball, that was the immediate one I know example-wise. That's why I brought to football. But basketball, I'm sure there's like 6-7 teams where I'm going, hang on a second. Okay, what's going on here? Like Creighton?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like we're way better than Creighton in basketball, but I don't know. They're hitting a hot streak, and they're showing everyone up, whatever it is. But there's going to be widespread, like, issues with teams.
Yeah.
For example, Florida State just won on a buzzer beater against Miami earlier today. Florida State got their 9th win of the season today.
Yeah.
If they carry this momentum through and win the whole ACC, they knock out a team like us or like West Virginia or, whatever. And that really could hurt. I mean, Arizona State, like, they're not ranked, but they have their 20th win. They also won on a buzzer beater earlier today against Arizona at U of A. Like, crazy good win for them. Probably means a lot. They could be one of those teams that Lenardi has in. I don't know the whole Pac-12 super well, but what are we doing?
I've watched some Arizona State this year. I would be like, they're 20-9 this year, and they were ranked earlier this year as well. I would be hard pressed to think that we wouldn't play them really close, and they have 20 wins. Like, and I don't want to do the whole conference thing, but this is the one sport that we get to have this like super big like conference alignment or conference like passion thing. Where it's like, no, we are simply playing significantly better teams. And that's it. But it's like, you look at Miami, NC State got smoked by Clemson today. And NC State was ranked. Like, not today, but they were previously ranked. They beat North Carolina. Like, I see a lot of these teams in these other conferences that are pushing 20 wins, and they suck. Like,
the eye test just makes it go, hang on a second.
One of these is not like the other. Like, that's
right. The eye test is so bad because you see a 14 ranked team in the country, AP poll wise, Kansas State, who's got 21 wins, 22 after they beat Oklahoma State today, and you're like, dude, I think this team can make it to the Final Four. So it's like, like right now, like tell me, like after today's game,
France said it.
Why? And I totally agree.
And they're 10-6 in the conference. They're 10-6, and people say they could make the Final Four in the conference.
Yeah.
They're 10-6 in the Big 12, and people are like, oh, they could make it. But I mean, they're showing it right now, which is pretty convenient for us. Arizona State is first 4 out, and they're 20-9. They have 20 wins in their first 4 out, and Oklahoma State is still last 4 in
with 16 wins.
With 16 wins, along with Mississippi State, who has 19 wins. So it's like in my opinion, there's no other teams that could play in the conference that we play in and be, like, what is Arizona State in the Big 12? And these are obviously rhetorical questions. What is Arizona State in the Big 12? What is Northwestern? What is North Carolina? What is Miami? They're 13th in the country, and they lost to Florida State at home. I know it was on a buzzer beater, but that means Florida State was within 2 points of you. They have 9 wins, which to me accounts for like 4. They might not win a game in the Big 12.
What's the second toughest conference? Because the Big 12 is the toughest. I mean, right now we're talking about possibly 8. Texas Tech has been on the, getting some numbers, getting some hype for the 9th team in the, for the Big 12 to be talked about and make March Madness. But what's the second best conference after the Big 12?
I would probably say the SEC.
And the SEC with 14 teams, with a bunch of, honestly, there's not a better way to put it than just nonsense going on.
They have dead weight.
With a bunch of teams that are just easy to beat.
Half their conference is dead weight. Like the Big Ten's good. I think the Big Ten is good. But, I mean, if you're saying that you've got Purdue, who's obviously up there, Indiana's good, but then you're like, oh, Northwestern is our 3rd-ranked team. They finish 8th in the Big 12. Like, I'm sorry, I'm just not, I don't respect them enough to be scared of them. And they could be great. They could go on a run in March Madness. But as we know, we talked about this the other night. There's a handful of teams that have actually won national championships over the last 20 years. There's just a lot of repeat offenders, and that's it. Like, you rarely have new blood, but you have like a Baylor. But like Gonzaga's never won a national championship. We feel like they're there every year.
They're in the national championship game.
It's Villanova.
2 out of the past 5 years, I think.
It's Nova, who sucks this year, Kansas, Duke, North Carolina, Michigan State.
Kentucky will make a run every so often, but not consistently.
But it's like you don't, even like Oklahoma, the first team that comes to mind, with a team that has had multiple top draft picks over the last 20 years or so. And really good players, Blake Griffin, Trey Young, Buddy Hield. Nothing. Like who was it they played with? But they played Villanova and got smoked. Was it, I think, the Elite 8 when they had Buddy Hield? Maybe the Sweet 16? They got smoked. And so it's like, that's not to knock on Oklahoma. This happens to multiple teams. But, like, let's not pretend like there's a mixed bag of teams winning the national championship.
Well, this is something that you and I have had the discussions, I don't know how many times now, of like, where I think our football team is like having enough success to be proud of.
Yeah.
But what I'm hearing you say that I think makes this full circle and why I'm bringing this up is that we play in a conference in football that is not a great conference football-wise. It's just not. So if you were telling me, hey, we play in the SEC and we have 8 wins or more consistently year over year, 10 wins or more consistently year over year, it's like, well, hang on, that's a really thing to hold your hat on in SEC.
Absolutely.
Big 10, Big 12, it's just not it's not, you can hold your hat on it. I think as an Oklahoma State fan, that's been a lifelong Oklahoma State fan since like as early as I can remember, it's something where it still is new, still feels special.
Yeah.
So there's a difference there. But you growing up in SEC country, growing up as a Florida fan, growing up in, Atlanta area, the differences that I've noticed is that, like, for basketball, you're like, hey, if you can get to 20 wins in the Big 12, that's huge.
Yeah.
But if you can get to 10 wins in the Big 12 in football, it's like, well, cool.
Yeah.
But what does that mean? Like,
Right.
just what does it mean?
Yeah.
And if you get to 8 wins, like, okay. Like, all right. Like, so you're around what K-State does every so often,
Right.
or you're around what Texas Tech did once in a blue moon, but you're around what Texas used to do. I don't, historically over time, I think we're talking about the second best Big 12 team being Oklahoma State by far and away, but we haven't played in the second most, we haven't played in the first or second or third most Big 12 championships since that became a thing in 2014.
Right.
So to bring it all the way back to the full point is like basketball, we can be super proud of the win total because it's the best conference.
Mm-hmm.
Football, we can't because it's not the best conference.
Yeah.
Well, football, we want to be like football. You got to hold it to even a higher standard because the value of play is just so much less in football than it is in basketball.
Yeah.
And that's totally fair. That's totally warranted.
Yeah, it's almost like in football, we're just like if we played in the SEC, we would be like Mississippi State. Like, you might knock somebody off, but you're gonna go to a bowl game, right? And that's it, which I think is why, not to bring it back to football, but like us winning 7 games this year is kind of pathetic because it's like, oh, we won the same amount of games as the 9th place team in the SEC. I don't know, I'm making that up, but like not great. Not great.
It's how many built-in wins do you have?
Right.
In the Big 12 in football, it's like you've got 3 built-in wins a year in the regular season, just matchups, and then you've got your non-conference. It's like you should be making a bowl game every year.
Right.
Because no matter what, every single year in football, you should be beating the KUs of the world, the Texas Techs, and then one other random team in the Big 12.
Iowa State in an off year.
Iowa State in an off year. Texas, we historically have beaten them a lot. That's how I hope Gundy's legacy goes down as the guy who conquered Texas.
Maybe Baylor sucks that year.
Yeah. But in basketball, every single night. I mean, this is like not even, shout out to Joel Penfield, who had on the podcast recently, but he's, he's used the term, and I think I've tried to steal it from him now a little bit here, is that the Big 12 is like a fight in a phone booth every single night in basketball. It's really a lot. Now, we did give up 100 points earlier this year, so it's not all defense, but a lot of it's really, really good defense and really, really good play. And just every single night, you don't have a off game.
Yeah.
I love watching Oklahoma State basketball because I know every single game is going to be at least competitive, or it should be. Now, the one true exception so far is that TCU game, which, oh my gosh, I wish I could get those hours back in my life. But I didn't watch. I got to watch with my dad, so I'll never say that really. It's always fun watching sports with your dad, or my dad especially. So, but with that being said, like that game was just annoying, but the rest of the games in the Big 12 basketball are a lot of fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, KU plays Baylor, like, oh, I'm tuning in.
Yeah.
It's a good game. I mean, so many games I'm like, oh yeah, I'm tuning in, I'm turning it on, and I'm like, oh my gosh, cannot wait to watch this one. Whereas football, it's like, am I going to watch KU play Texas? Okay, maybe, because like it'd be kind of funny if it's competitive, because it just the programs and their history.
Mm-hmm.
But like when K-State was playing Texas earlier this year, I was like, oh no, Texas has this. Like, what am I doing? Like, Texas went up like by like a touchdown, and immediately I was like, all right, I can fall back asleep. It's fine, or take a nap or do whatever. Because it was just like, Whereas in basketball, no chance. I mean, West Virginia took Kansas all the way to the end of the game today, and KU ended up pulling out the win. West Virginia now has a 5-11 record in the Big 12, much worse than Oklahoma State's, and a 16-13 overall, same season record as Oklahoma State.
Yep. Back
to your point, they're in somehow. They're in over Oklahoma State.
Right.
Even though we split the season series and we each won the home game.
Yeah, it's really confusing. And, they showed Mississippi State. I don't mean to pick on them, but Mississippi State, for example, won their second ranked win of the year this year, beating Texas A&M, who probably shouldn't be ranked in the first place. Mississippi State's other ranked win this year was TCU, where Mike Miles got hurt.
Wow.
So they've won one ranked game this year in conference. I'm not saying rankings mean everything, but we know they base it on that. We know they look at ranked wins, and they won one ranked game this year in conference. We won 3. So, not saying that's any better, but it's like, it's not the same, because Mississippi State, if you look at it, They're 19-10, right? We're 16-13. Man, it would sure be freaking sweet if we didn't have to play a ranked team every week. Because we might have 3 extra wins. But if your conference gets rewarded, then I don't care.
Well, this will be interesting with the expansion of the Big 12.
Yes.
This is what really will bring it full circle on, okay, so like this year we lost to UCF by 1, neutral site, but it was in the state of Florida, I believe, or it was not. It was not in the state of...
Is it like Sunrise, Florida? Is that where it was?
I think so. It also, I don't think there were that many fans. It looked like it was in a hotel ballroom from the setup. I know it wasn't, but I'm just saying, like, not like UCF had a huge presence there either, is the point. So when UCF joins the conference officially, when Houston joins the conference officially, when BYU joins the conference officially in Cincinnati, all next year, in basketball, it'll be like, wait a second, did our conference did it get easier? The answer is going to be yes, because there'll be more variables and more teams for us to play.
Right.
Where there will be a BYU we get to play. There will be a Cincinnati. There will be a UCF. But unless Kelvin Sampson retires anytime soon, Houston's going to be just as tough, if not tougher, than any team played in the Big 12 every night. Because they're like one of the favorites to go win it all this year.
Yeah, they play like a Big 12 team too. Like it's horrible. It's disgusting basketball.
It's really a defensive approach.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it really is like, Oklahoma State shot 5 of 20 from 3 and only lost the game by 5 and scored 68. Wait, how?
Yeah.
But that's Houston plays very similarly.
Yeah. They'll fit in perfectly, but like you wonder if, because that's always the thing, are these teams going to get transfers now? Like are they going to get recruits now? Like, that's the question, because it's like, oh, are they going to go play in the Big 10? You know? Or are they going to go play in the Big 12? Where are they going to want to go play? Because if we're being honest right now, college basketball is not, this is kind of going a little off, but college basketball is not looking to be the premier landing spot for top picks anymore.
Well, what do you think is now?
That G League thing, I think people like that, especially this year. I think the overseas thing is probably going to start to kick in here pretty soon. And, you know, obviously this year, you know, you've got like Wembanyama and all that stuff. But, I mean, who's the best player in college basketball this year? Draft-wise. Not even... Like Zach Edey is probably...
You. Yeah, I'd ask you on that, defer, because what is it? Brandon Miller out of Alabama. There's a couple of overtime elite guys this is not college basketball, who are talking about getting drafted. They're brothers. There's Scoot Henderson, G League guy, G League Ignite guy. There's Victor Wembanyama, who's a foreign player he's from Paris, like a suburb outside of Paris.
Yeah.
He could transcend the whole entire sport, and that's not hyperbole. It's really not.
I did see him get bodied the other day, though.
Well, he's 7'5", and he's taken lessons from Dirk Nowitzki's shooting coach.
Yeah,
and he can shoot the 3, and he's 7'5". Like, barring injury, this guy could be the next deal. But I will say this: the last person I said that about, Zion. He's about to get his second. He's on his second contract. Excuse me, and it's like, wait a second. He's going to be out for how long with the hamstring injury? We're never going to see a full season from Zion in his first or second deal, maybe.
Yeah,
that's bad. So I'm not going to say Wembanyama is going to be the next LeBron, because honestly, that doesn't happen.
No,
you don't get a LeBron every so often. You don't get a KD every so often. But what you do get is like great guys who prove themselves in college. With the NIL deals, I hope that Scoot Henderson, for example, will go, wait a second, why did I do this G League night where no one really sees me play on the biggest stage for non-NBA basketball?
Yeah.
Because G League is pro basketball, so non-NBA basketball is not me. And before the draft, it's still not me. It's all March Madness. It's all everyone focuses on. And with the NIL deals, hopefully that, means that like these overtime elite guys, these G League Ignite guys, these foreign guys, whatever, will come over. And I want to ask you this, like, do you think that Lauri Markkanen, I recently just heard him on the Russillo podcast. Yep. He was, of course, all-star. He took apart the Thunder earlier this week, I think on Thursday night in overtime in Utah. There are a couple ref calls that I don't want to get into. But he scored 43 against the Thunder.
Yeah.
Lauri Markkanen. He's on his third team. He's a foreign player from Finland.
What is he, a fifth? Is this his fifth year? Fourth year?
Yeah, I think this is fifth or sixth team. Fifth year. Point being is that he's a guy from Finland who's not American, but went to go play at University of Arizona.
Yeah.
And he said this on the most recent podcast I listened to about it, that, yeah, around December, he was like, wait, I'm not going to play all 4 years here at Arizona? Wait, they think I might be a lottery pick?
Yeah.
If I'm Scoot Henderson, I don't know. Do I go play? The real question would be, if you're Jalen Green, right now, you saw you didn't go number 1 overall, you think you should have, whatever.
Yeah.
But if you're Jalen Green, Houston Rockets, yeah, second pick overall, NBA draft right behind Kate Cunningham, are you going, man, I should have played college ball?
Probably, because my minimal knowledge about G League is the G League Ignite and all that stuff is they're playing professional players, right?
Yeah.
To an extent.
Yeah.
I don't know if they receive the kind of coaching that an 18-year-old needs. That's always been my question, but also, like, him in particular, yeah, probably. Because that's his opportunity to get shots up. Like, he's just getting shots up like he does now. And so maybe he gets it out of him. Where it's like, he's taken 17 shots in a college basketball game, which is a lot, as we know. Like, that's a lot. But in G League, like, you kind of got to share the ball with whoever's on your team. Didn't he play with Kuminga?
Mm-hmm.
Was Kuminga on that team? All that kind of stuff. But this kind of goes into a bigger conversation we had earlier. Basketball players are almost getting worse. Like, they're less polished coming into college basketball and the G League and especially the NBA, where, like, I just checked briefly just because I was curious. So Bleacher Report, that was the first one I looked at, so don't yell at me. Bleacher Report had Grady Dick going number 6. And I don't think Grady Dick is a bad basketball player by any means. But nobody could tell me he's more than tall Joe Harris.
But I also think he's more of a surefire bet than, like, these Thompson twins from the Overtime Elite games. Because I have watched a couple of highlights, and when I say a couple highlights, like, it's not that much. But it doesn't look like they're really having to try to play basketball.
No.
So many times when I'm sure anyone who's played any pickup basketball or seen pickup basketball recently, it's basically, can you take your guy off the dribble in any pickup game?
Yep.
If you can take your guy off the dribble, oh, that's a bucket. That's it. Oh, wait, the team you're playing against decided to help side defense and you don't know how to pass it? Turnover, layup line the other court.
Yeah.
Like that, layup line the other side. That's just all it is. That's all pickup basketball is now. There's no, like people don't know how to run like a pick and roll. Like, yeah, in pickup basketball, no one's throwing out 2-3 zone. No one's throwing out a box, box plus one. No one's trying to, set 2, down screens and then, pin a guy from the backside cutting in. That had happened to me literally once because it was just the slowest, and they were like, let's set 2 pin down screens on this guy so we can hit the game winner and leave. It was annoying for me. But point being is that just no one's doing any of that type of stuff instinctively or trying to, like, run like a, hey, man, like, come on over. Hey, like, come here. I got an idea.
But
like,
you do it
like
in college.
But in college, you have to play basketball. You have to play team basketball. And it's bizarre when guys just come into the NBA not knowing how to do that. Like Jalen Green, it just is weird watching him play basketball because he just grew up in this, like, I'm Steph Curry.
Yeah,
I'm going to pull it.
It's like every game he watches like a J.R. Smith highlight tape.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just like, dude, I don't think college basketball is great. I love it, but it's pretty rough basketball. But the one thing that college basketball does over every other form of basketball is it forces you to play in a system.
Mm-hmm.
It forces you to play as a team, and it forces you to play defense. The NBA, contrary to what JJ Redick says, those dudes don't play defense. Not like they do in college basketball. If you can ask off, I'm a teacher, and NBA players get to ask off more than I do. They get more off days than I do. Like,
yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
and so it's like,
yeah.
We talked about this earlier, that doesn't happen in hockey. In college basketball, you don't miss games. And I know they play less. I'm aware of this.
They play 50 less games or so in the regular season. My question to you would be is that NBA, at that point, you've made it.
Right.
College, you haven't.
Right.
So I think the NHL comparison's fair. Like NHL, like they're playing like still a large amount of games.
Yeah, they play a ton. It's close. I think it's 80.
It's more physical, clearly, than the NBA. Way more physical.
They lose like pounds. I talked to former NHL players, and like, I'm not trying to like toot my own horn, but people that don't know, I worked for the NHL, so I used to talk to players, and I didn't know anything about hockey, and I still don't know a ton about hockey. But at the time, they told me, they're like, yeah, man, we'll weigh ourselves before games, and we'll be down 10 pounds after games.
Well, and I'm sure NBA guys would say the same thing because they're already so conditioned. The key thing with the NBA, I'd say, comparatively to college basketball or NHL or whatever, is that the incentive to play every single night is not as much there.
No,
it's just not. Kyrie Irving said, "Yeah, go ahead and trade me," because he didn't want to be. He would have stayed with the Nets. Kevin Durant might have too. This will be a total like sliding doors moment. If you haven't seen that movie, please do. And it'll be a true sliding doors moment here in like 5 years, depending on how Kyrie and Kevin Durant's careers turn out. Because if the Nets go, you know what, Kyrie, we just want to sign you for the max, and we don't care how many games you play.
Yeah.
But because the Nets this offseason, we're trying to put in stipulations for how many games you had to play, percentage-wise, or just overall. And it was like win healthy type
like
of
they
deal.
do in every sport, for the record.
Besides the NBA.
Right.
Because the NFL, there's no fully guaranteed contracts. MLB, I don't know exactly how that all works, but there still is like conditions. You have to play a certain amount of games.
Soccer is pretty big on appearances.
Soccer's pretty darn big too. And I think all the pro sports is fair to compare it to. But my point here, because I'm making it too long, is that the NBA, you're incentivized actively to get the best player in the draft. Because if you have the first pick in the NFL draft and it's Jadeveon Clowney, cool. You have the 10th pick in the NFL draft, it could be Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
And it's like, oh my gosh, okay, we had we traded up, we got this pick, whatever. The NBA, you could either have Victor Wembanyama, or you could have, oh gosh, I'm going to forget one, but you could have like Malik Monk or James Bouknight. And on the opposite side of it, you could also have Donovan Mitchell, who's picked after Malik Monk. So at the 13th pick, like the NBA gets just such a crapshoot because there's only 5 players. You could have a guy who's like, oh my gosh, how in the world did we get a chance to draft LeBron?
Right.
And then or a couple years later go, yeah, we drafted Anthony Bennett. This did not work. Now we're going to get a chance to draft Kyrie Irving.
Right. Yeah,
you're actively incentivized to tank so much more in the NBA versus every other sport. And that means guys are going to miss games because the GM's going to go, hey man, yeah, you know what? Hey, Dame Lillard. Dude, I know you just had the All-Star break, but are you sure you want to come back and play tonight? Like, are you 110% positive? Because right now we're the 12th seed.
Yeah.
We're not playing for a play-in. I don't know what they are literally today when we're recording this, February 25th. But there's a good chance that it's like, hey, Lillard, hey, let's read the room a little bit. Why don't we get Shaedon Sharpe a little more playing time? Why don't we get Archie Dinacchio a little more playing time too? see how these guys shake out a little bit more, give them some more chances to really run the offense, and then next year we'll run it back. We'll see what you got. Because for so many years, the Trailblazers have been too good to get an actually good pick.
Right.
They had CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard for so many years. They wait. I mean, Lillard, like, shout out to him. He's a real good player. He waved by the Thunder. That'll stick with me for forever. But his legacy is like winning a playoff series will be that.
Yeah.
I mean, really winning a playoff series over the Thunder, and that's something to definitely hold your hat on. I'm not saying that's not, but to reach peak potential, you can't be like, oh, let me see if we could get like the MVP runner up in the at our best position on the field in the second round.
Yeah.
Or in the NBA term, like I'm talking about Jalen Hurts here, or in NBA terms, like I wonder if the 16th pick we can get a future MVP. Like there's a reason why Jokic is a unicorn because
Giannis.
It's literally he's the only one to ever be a second rounder to get MVP.
Yeah,
and Giannis, that's such a weird deal too because it's like this guy playing in Greece where we think the basketball goals might be 10 feet, but no one's really scouted him, is going to be picked 15th overall.
Yeah,
and then it's going to take multiple years of him playing in the perfect organization for him to have time to get better and progress to actually be as good as he is today too.
But I think with the NBA is like what we're transitioning towards is you've got guys that come in and are very good bench players. Andrew Nembhard is, I know he's been really good this year, and I saw his name pop up on the ticker. So, excuse me, I don't watch the NBA that much.
No, he's really good for the Pacers.
But I know he's been really good for the Pacers.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he played all 4 years in college. So, it's going to take these people years to develop, much more so than probably ever. Like you said, there's no more LeBrons, which there's never been a LeBron, but there's no more you're going to come into the NBA and dominate. It's just not going to happen. You are going to look more like Jason Tatum. That's it. Like, because for all we know, like we mentioned Jalen Green earlier, Jalen Green could win the scoring title here in the next 3 years. Like 3 years from now, he's what, 25? And he wins the scoring title. He's the next Bradley Beal. Really good scorer, terrible team. Right? Would that surprise me? Not in the slightest. But what I'm not going to do is write him off like he's Michael Carter-Williams. Right?
No,
like that.
Not at all.
But I think that's kind of what the NBA is transitioning towards because you've got Lauri Markkanen, right? Brought him up earlier, where it's like, it's clear to me that it is taking a lot of these guys so much longer to develop, and the guys that develop faster were in college for longer. You're not just coming in and dominating anymore. It doesn't work that way.
Well, Donovan Mitchell, for example, played all 4 years in college, and that was the knock on him. Oh, he's old.
Did he really?
Yeah, he played at Louisville all 4 years.
I did
Maybe
not know.
3, but yeah. That was the knock on him
Over
coming
one.
out.
He was there over one at least.
Oh, I mean,
yeah.
I'm pretty sure he played all 4. I mean, it's one of those where Mitchell's, like, the knock on him was, okay, we're going to get him. He still has a little bit of upside, but not a ton.
Yeah.
So this is who we think he's a finished player today. It's like, oh, okay, what are we going to do? Whereas with John Morant, it's like, well, hang on a second here. This guy at Murray State, not a Power 5 school. He played 3 years. Okay.
3 years.
Is incredible, but John Morant, ton upside. We can see what he can do.
Did he come out as a freshman, or was he a sophomore?
But the point being of like just the age. The age matters so much on these guys in the NBA because you really the amount of players who have played after they've been 35 is just so small.
So is NBA, I mean, is the age span starting to get tighter then? Like, is it starting to look more like NFL running back stuff? Like,
it really is because you're seeing. Earlier we were talking about how that there's not a ton of guys who play NBA, who play basketball necessarily. They play one-on-one. They play pickup style, right? We're watching here, Virginia, North Carolina. There's a lot of like, all right, pick and rolls that are just not run perfectly, all type of stuff. It's college basketball, like. It's fun to watch. North Carolina's not ranked. Virginia's 6th in the country. Like it's a lot of fun to watch. But point being, they're not going to be perfect. Like, they're not going to handle everything perfectly. NBA guys don't at all whatsoever. The biggest difference, though, from, like, me watching college versus pros right now is the pros, you have to be at your peak athleticism to play in the pros.
Yeah.
You can't really get by being, like, a guy who's slow getting up and down the court. Andre Drummond has played out of the league, basically. Dwight Howard.
Brooke Lopez changed his game.
Whole game. But Dwight Howard out of the league. Michael Carter-Williams out of the league. Carmelo Anthony out of the league.
Ben Simmons,
well, he's still really athletic. He's just more mental. But the point being is, like, these guys are, like, out of the league because they can't keep up.
Yeah.
They can't keep up. And it's such, like, a flip of the switch. Like, we don't need you to play defense. We need you to hit shots.
Yeah.
But then unless you're basically, like, 50%, 40% from three, then, like, if you're too slow, you're out of the league. Like, I saw Kevin Huerter double clutch a 3-point shot going into the end of the first quarter, going into halftime last night in the Kings-Clippers games. That was so bad. He missed the whole basket. Everything. Double clutched it. And I was like, man, if this guy does that 2 or 3 more times, he's so bad on defense. He just is. He's just a small white guy playing. I mean, it's like if you or I are out there playing NBA basketball,
6'5",
just like we were like 3 or 4 inches taller.
Yeah.
And we're 40% from three consistently.
Yeah.
But like if he all of a sudden goes, oh crap, I'm shooting 30%, he's not playing.
No.
Duncan Robinson's contract looks horrible because he's not in as many as he used to. He was like almost 50% from three. And it was like, oh my gosh. The Heat got him on one heck of a deal.
And now they've got like Max Strus playing games or something like that.
Exactly, because like honestly, Robinson doesn't hit as many as he used to. Robinson stopped doing his whole podcast, I believe, because he honestly was like, it's getting to him. So the NBA, you just really can't be like out of shape. You really can't be old. You really can't be slow and make it anymore. That's also why like you don't see a lot of guys just playing big up hoops who have like a really good skill set but are slow. You just aren't playing pick up hoops anymore if you know how to play. And I'm not saying I don't play basketball. I don't really know how to play basketball. I need to be coached. I need to know like what to switch with. I need whatever.
Right.
But when you have all these guys who are transferring from school to school in college, and then all of a sudden they play at High Point University, let's use John Michael Wright as an example, and they come and they play Big 12 basketball, and they're making 19 points. They're hitting, end shots, scoring 19 plus a game. Oh, man, that's amazing. How in the world did you not get to be a Power 5, going to Power 5 school? But
we kind of see that now, right?
It's like
he's not bad.
It's like,
obviously.
you just don't have the athleticism to be out there most nights.
Yeah.
And it all comes back to that. It all comes back to, are you in shape enough? Are you conditioned enough? Are you like able to make enough tough shots? But no longer is this a true, you know what? We need a John Michael Wright type of guy. We need a guy who can control the offense, a guy who can slow down the pace of play, a guy who can be conservative and be a senior and be really careful of the ball. We instead need a guy who's like, that guy's 42% from three.
Mm-hmm.
Go get him. But he can't play defense. I don't care. He can shoot 42% from three.
Yeah.
But he can't stand in front of a guy even. It's like, okay, but do you not see how that making threes 40+% of the time is going to outweigh all the cons that he has?
Well, here's Noel, right?
Mm-hmm.
The one that plays for Kansas State.
Oh, yeah.
He is 37.5 3-point. Or no, that's what he shot today. I'm sorry. This season, he is shooting 33.9% from three, which for college, I would say is probably not bad, especially for how much he shoots. However, he played 39 minutes. He came out for 1 minute.
I mean, you talk about a guy who's in shape, but is just undersized. I mean, the guy was making layups.
He can't play defense.
Can't play defense, making layups, though, and hitting, using some type of English on the basketball, so it came off the backboard and went around Moussa Cisse's arms.
He had 22, 8, and 5 today.
Like,
and he's a
incredible.
5'8" point guard that played 39 minutes.
Does he have a career in the NBA, though?
No.
And it's just because he couldn't keep up. Because
Right.
the NBA game's even faster.
So, you watch the NBA much more than I do. Do you agree, not saying that they don't play defense in the NBA, But the ball pressure is much less in the NBA versus than it is in college, right?
Oh yeah.
Like the on ball stuff, and that's probably just down to the amount of games. Like, because James Harden's like, yeah, we have a back-to-back Sacramento and Golden State. He's like, I'm not guarding you this possession. Sorry.
Well, but also, like, how much am I going to try? Because the biggest thing is that the NBA has... So last night I saw Clippers-Kings game.
Yeah.
The total score combined between both teams was over 350 points.
Yep.
Was the third and fourth highest scoring, game ever, by each team, right? 176 to 175. Why I'm bringing this up is that the game was played over 2 overtimes, so it was played 58 minutes, 5 minutes for each overtime, 40 minutes regulation, right? But 350 points combined between both teams. It would take Oklahoma State playing another Big 12 team like 6 games to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, we scored 46 points at one point in one game earlier this year against Texas, who scored 56. Like, it still was under 120 for the total. And I'm not super great at math. It might have been under 110. It's like, man, this under, or this amount total in 8 minutes less of playing time, where the shot clock is only 6 seconds more per possession. And no one's using the whole shot clock every single possession.
No.
But you're talking me 120 when, like, most NBA games now, the score for one team is 120. It's just crazy on the, oh, yeah, we excel in transition. The last thing I'd say on the main difference here is that there's a bunch of breakdowns between, okay, who's going to be a good playoff team versus who's a good regular season team right now. Memphis Grizzlies are a team that a lot of people are out on, myself included, because they play so well at home and they play so well in transition. They score a ton of points. Steve Adams is really good at throwing the ball down the court, passing it when he's healthy. He's been out for a while now. John Morant can just run.
Yep.
And Desmond Bane can just shoot threes. And then they have a couple other guys on the team who are really good at transition basketball. But in college, you see a lot more half-court sets because so many more guys are really, really in shape but don't have a ton of other excellent skills. NBA, you see every single person's just as in shape as they were in college, but they also excel at a certain skill.
Yeah. And it's like, not everybody can run a half-court offense, for example. Like, even people in the NBA still can't run half-court offenses. But I think that's why there's a lot, like, people that love college basketball, the NBA is hard for them to watch. Mm-hmm. Because college basketball is almost basketball in, like, its purest, dirty, disgusting form, right? Like, it's basketball with a coach that matters. It's basketball with, you're actually running plays. There's less ISO. You're playing defense. It's basketball where you're playing the team that you hate in intramurals in college, right? Like that's what it is, where you feel like you have something to play for, even if it is just bragging rights. Whereas the NBA, do they run sets? Sure. But what's Luka's usage percentage right now?
Oh, I mean, it's gone down a little bit since they've gotten Kyrie, but to your point, it's incredibly high. It's incredibly high. And,
NBA people, I don't want to watch that. It's like I've joked with our friend Pete, like, pretty frequently. I said, because he loves the Thunder, and I'm like, yeah, Pete, that's great. But if I can tell you what's going to happen, if I have 3 options and can tell you what's going to happen on every single time, I don't want to watch it. ISO, high ball screen, drive kick. That's the NBA. That's it. And so that's why people like Jay Crowder get to sit out. That's ridiculous.
Well, he didn't want to play this whole year.
He didn't want to play.
A trade.
Because he wanted to play for a good team, right?
Even though clearly he can't see what's in front of him, which is a good team. It's
right.
just bizarre. He was traded part of the Kevin Durant deal, so he wasn't going to be able to stay on that team after they got him. But
you know what I'm saying.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I know what you're saying. It just is Well, let's end this one out on this, though. So Oklahoma State's got 2 more games.
Yep. We've been wanting to do this college basketball NBA thing.
We
for
have.
a while.
We have been a while. This has been blowing up. Like
Yeah.
It's like a state of basketball podcast. But do you think that Oklahoma State can make the tournament if they only win one? If they win only against Texas Tech, if they win the easier of the 2 final games.
Is it easier?
17 at Tech versus Baylor at home. I would hope so.
I would hope so, but we were favored today.
Well, I mean, do you think if we win either of the next 2, then we'd be 17 and if we win one of the next 2, we lose the other one. Be 17 and 14 on the season.
Mm-hmm.
Don't exactly remember our Big 12 record off the top of my head here. Do you think we're in?
I think we'd be like 8 and 10.
Yeah, sounds right. Yeah, 'cause we play every team twice except for ourselves, of course. Yeah,
I've seen a lot of 8 and 10, a lot of 7 and 11 Big 12 teams go to the tournament. So yeah, I think we probably should, but again, I've seen our program get overlooked in teams that should have made it for, as much as people don't want to say. Oklahoma made it that year over us, and because they had Trae Young and they could put him on television. Like I've seen teams make it over us that shouldn't. And personally, I think there should be 9 teams from the Big 12 make it, just not OU. Which again isn't a knock on them. They just suck this year. But I don't know if they really suck because they smoked Alabama. I don't know. It doesn't.
I'm going to say yes. I think we beat Baylor. We're in. We could lose to Tech at Tech.
Yeah.
If we lose to Baylor at home, but it's Baylor, ranked team, top 4 in the Big 12. If we lose to Baylor at home, in a game that I don't think will be favored, but we might be, it'll be close.
2.5 or something.
It'll be really close.
Yeah.
But we lose to Baylor and then beat Tech at Tech. Almost matters how we beat them.
Yeah.
At that point, especially if we're the 7th seed in the Big 12, we have to play OU for the 3rd time this season after winning the first 2 in the Big 12 tournament, and then we don't just crush them. Then I don't think we're in. I think we really have to beat Baylor Monday night.
I think so. I think you're right. It's so hard without Avery. I think we're kind of realizing the fruits of his labor right now, because people kind of, I wouldn't say necessarily me and you, but we kind of knew that he wasn't an offensive player, and that's okay.
I'll always be weirded out that West Virginia game that Cade Cunningham missed, and Avery went off for 30 plus, and just be like, where the heck did that guy go?
Yeah.
But from the same standpoint, he's always been a defensive guy who's really good in transition offensively and takes a couple too many shots every game. But every guy does.
Right, and the thing with him is today is one of those days where if he plays, we probably win. We lose by 5, and the reason we lost is because our players that are supposed to be able to make open shots did not make open shots. We didn't play poorly defensively. We didn't shoot poorly from the free throw line. We didn't turn the ball over. We didn't overfoul. We didn't do any of the things that people want to blame the things of why we lose, right? We lost because, and it sounds simple, but evidently it's not. We had a lot of open shots today. A lot more than I've seen us have any other game this year. And we missed them. Because if we make the same amount of threes that Kansas State does, we win.
Oh, yeah. But also, if Asbury doesn't take 6 threes, takes 4.
And Bryce Thompson bricked some open ones.
But I'm just saying, if you just take less threes and instead work around for a better shot when we're in double bonus, then if we win, we'll all have fun. Yeah. This was still a super close game, even though we shot 22% from 3. It's very hard. You're not gonna get a free night. Nothing's gonna happen easy. But that being said, go Pokes Monday night. You watch it. try and follow the podcast here next week. Jake, as always, thanks so much for joining. And please follow at the CGA Tour on Twitter and Instagram for more. And we'll catch you guys soon.